going to share with you a little bit about Deloitte, the firms that I've been working with, right? And also we are going to watch a video, a movie. So I belanja tengok wayang hari ini. So the movie is in relation to fraud and professional skepticism, and we are going to end the session with a Q&A session. Okay, next. Right, Deloitte is the number one in the global, what we call it, consultation firm in the globe. Okay, we actually have 312,000 headcounts in 150 countries globally across 735 offices. Our revenue is about US dollar 46.2 billion. As again, we actually position number one, in terms of the consulting firm as well as auditing firm in the world. We have about more than 65,000 staff and partners in Asia Pacific, and about 3,000 partners across 22 countries in Asia Pacific. If we go about the C-level, Southeast Asia level, we have about more than 11,000 people in 25 offices, 380 partners. And from the perspective of Malaysia, we have over 2,344 staff, 62 partners. And in Malaysia, before this, we are known as Kasim Chan and also Deloitte Kasim Chan. We have about 52 years of history since 1968. Now we call ourselves as Deloitte. Next. Right. In Deloitte, we actually challenge ourselves to do what matters most. So our stakeholder is normally come from three categories. Our client, which is we are going to serve our client distinctively. We actually bring innovation in terms of our audit, and we are actually solving complex challenges and also unlocking sustainability growth for our client. And in terms of our people, we inspire our talented professional, right, to deliver outstanding values to our client. So we don't really think about, client is always a priority. We also think about our people also is a priority for us because we are in the client service industry. And last but not least is from the category of society. So that's why we are here talking to you, all the students, because we would like to contribute back to the society, to build also confidence and trust in the market when we serve our services, and also to uphold the integrity of the organization and support our communities overall. Next. Right. In terms of our culture in Deloitte, integrity is always number one. So this is actually the factor that differentiates us as compared to other profession in the world. Because if you are not having a good integrity level, you are not the auditors, right? You are not the accountant, you are not the auditors. So that's why integrity is our main culture in Deloitte. Secondly, our culture is actually to understand the value to the markets and also to client. And we serve our client, we serve with, world-class services. This is what we meant with the understanding values to market and also client. And another principle of Deloitte is actually commitment to each other, right? We committed to our people, we committed to our client, we committed to provide services that are required by our client. And last but not least, strength cultural diversity. So in Malaysia, Deloitte Malaysia, we have more than 30 nationalities. We have people from Japan, we have people from Korea, we have local people, we have people from Singapore work in Deloitte Malaysia itself. So because of the sharing of the experience, across the globe, we can serve better to our client. Next. This is basically a very brief background of myself, as I think the moderator just started the event this morning, just now. She introduced me as an audit partner of Deloitte Malaysia. So this so-called overall journey of me, I born in Pontian, Johor. Then I pursue study in University of Malaya. graduated with Bachelor in Accounting with Honours in the year 2001. Right. So right after I finished my exam paper, the next day I joined Deloitte Malaysia as an audit assistant. This happened back in year 2001 as well. And I worked in Deloitte Malaysia Kuala Lumpur office until 2006. Then thereafter, I moved out to commercial. I worked in a multinational public listed company in Malaysia, leading the finance department. And I worked there for 6 years until I reached a position of CFO at the age of 33. So I attained my CFO level at 2011. And before that, so a lot of things happened during commercial, a lot of experience that I actually gathered in terms of experience dealing with businesses. And then I decided to move back to Deloitte in the year 2012, right? So they have a combination of the working experience in commercial and as an auditor. I go back to Deloitte Johor Bahru and work here until I promoted as a partner in 2019. So this is actually a very brief journey of myself. Next. I'm not sure whether you have heard, what auditors do, but this particular slide reflect my real experience. When I became an auditor in year 2001. At that point of time, a laptop is a luxury item, so we worked on a very heavy file, a manual file, and then we have to refer to a lot of manual books, right? So since technology changed, right, we actually evolve as well, and we auditing our client. So from the traditional manual file, we changed to have apps in our handphone to serve our client. So if you could see to the very, very right snapshot of pictures over there, there's a lot of apps of Deloitte. Yeah, all these apps actually in my phone. We got Power BI, we got Deloitte, meeting, we got Deloitte Connect. So no longer a traditional audit carrying manual files all over the places, but we have now translate to a lot of tools used in the technology. Right. Next. So I understand that you are first year student and also second year student. In environment, this is what you can expect, right? You can expect after you study, you can expect that the network is actually more. You will be dealing with a lot of people out there. You will be dealing with, your clients. You will be dealing with your subordinate. You will be dealing with the bosses, right? On top of that, when you are in working environment, you will have to choose which career that you want to pursue. Whether you want to pursue like an auditor like me, and then after become an accountant, or you can do your own business. But there's a lot of flexibility if you say you learn account. Next, the attractive compensation. Well, I would say that if you make a good choice, right, to join a big four like Deloitte, after your graduation, I'm not so sure. After diploma, maybe you will take a degree or also professional paper, right? Right. If say you choose to join Big Four, the compensation in terms of salary, the starting range is actually quite high. So make sure you actually make the right choice, before you enter a working environment. Yeah, because if let's say you choose the wrong, company, wrong firm, right? The compensation in terms of salary is not that attractive. But Big Four like Deloitte, we have very attractive compensation scale, right? And then also in Deloitte, you have a lot of chance to lead and also to inspire each other, because we actually work as one in Deloitte. We share resources within Southeast Asia. We also have a reach of global, so there's a lot of chances to work with a lot of people and a lot of chances to inspire everybody, right? Next. So this is the one that I mentioned. Since Deloitte is the number one global consulting firm in the world, we have invested in terms of a lot of audit tools and innovation. From the perspective of data gathering, from the perspective of risk assessment, control, substantive testing, and even come to reporting and insight to our client. So there's a lot of investment. So we are very, very in top notch in terms of this audit tools and also innovation. Right, next. Okay, let's talk about the technicality now. Okay, since the topic is about fraud, the topic is about fraud and also professional skepticism. What is exactly fraud? Okay, what is the role of auditor in terms of fraud? So in this particular slide, reflect that under International Standard of Auditing, which is actually published by the International Auditing and Assurance Standards Board, IAASB, ISA 240 requires the auditors to consider fraud when they perform the audit. Okay. Under ISA 240, there are two types of intentional misstatement relating to the auditors. Number one is actually misstatement resulting to fraudulent financial reporting. And number two is a misstatement resulting from misappropriation of assets. If I were to, expand a little bit in terms of fraudulent financial reporting, I'm not so sure whether you have heard about cooking the books. Okay, so cooking the books means, a person that have a power can override any control in the company to fraudulently report something that not supposed to. For example, they actually inflate the sales to be at higher level, or they reduce the cost to make sure that they show a good profit, right? Which is not the actual profit of the company. This is what we call as fraudulent financial reporting. Okay, and an example of the second one, which is the misstatement resulting from misappropriation of asset, such as the employees take out assets of the company. For example, they take out of inventories of the company. Yeah. Next. Well, this is actually what we call as a fraud triangle. Okay, why do people commit financial reporting fraud? Okay, there are a few reasons why, but we have compressed it into this particular fraud triangle. Number one is because of the financial pressure. So how to define financial pressure? For example, a chief financial officer of the company, the key performance indicators of this CFO or chief financial officer is to achieve certain level of profitability for that particular financial year. So it creates a financial pressure for the CFO to show a good results for that particular year. So what this particular CFO can do, they can actually manipulate the financial reporting to show a greater profit for that particular year. Okay, and then the second part of the fraud triangle is the opportunity. So when we talk about opportunity in a company, always have an internal control. For example, who actually approve certain thing, right? Who actually approve payment, for example, right? So when the internal control is weak, this is where a lot of opportunities can come for people to commit fraud. Okay, for example, they can make payment to bogus creditors, because the control is not there. And the third item is actually on the rationalization, right? So what it means by rationalization? Okay, I give an example. Because of the financial pressure, the CFO has recorded fictitious revenue. Okay, for example, and with the thinking that later month the year, the actual sales can happen and I can reverse this particular fictitious sales. So when this CFO have that thought in mind, it means it can be fixed thereafter. This is what we call rationalization. Okay. So it kind of, when the person is doing something, the person is actually doing fraudulent things, and things, it can be made up thereafter or can be rectified thereafter. That's why people commit fraud. Next. Based on my experience as an auditor, they are this 5 item is the most common financial statement fraud scheme. Number 1 is actually the timing differences in terms of the revenue recognition. Instead of recognizing the revenue in later year or maybe after year end, which is not belongs to the current financial year, the revenue recognition has been made upfront. Okay, so this is something not right. Because of maybe the company would like to inflate the revenue at higher levels. The second common financial statement fraud scheme is to conceal liabilities and also expenses. When we talk about the profitability, there are 2 factors. One is to inflate sales. Another one is actually to reduce costs. Okay, that's translate to higher profitability level. So there's a lot of common financial statement fraud scheme where the finance department or the finance manager, for example, try to reduce the liabilities by charging, by not disclosing the liabilities, right? And there's actually reduce expenses. And number 3 is actually improper disclosure. Right, so the disclosure is not appropriate. The disclosure is lacking. This is actually one of the common fraud. And next is actually fictitious revenue. Similar to number 1, but this is basically more easy to do by the person creating a bogus customer, for example. The customer is not there, but you just create the invoice to register higher level of revenue. And number 5 is actually improper asset valuation. For example, the company has fixed asset, they have land, they have building. They record the value of the asset to the higher level. So when they record the asset at higher level, they recognize the gain out of the valuation. So when they recognize the gain out of the valuation, the profitability also at higher level. Okay. So how can the fraudulent financial reporting be accomplished? Okay, this is one of the ways is actually from the intentional misapplication. The CFO, for example, they know that it is actually wrong, but they have to do it. Yeah, we are going to understand more about this when we watch the video later on. The video is about a company called Deloitte. We call the video as false assurance, right? So when you go through the video, you maybe can understand more about this. And secondly is actually manipulation. For example, to reduce the expenses. So this is something like manipulating the financial reporting, right? And we can also look at this when we watch the video later on. And the last one is a misrepresentation, meaning that the person which is responsible in that particular company's finance department give wrong information to the auditors, give wrong information to the public as well, right? So we are going to watch this later on in the video. Right. As an auditor, who we always interact with? We always interact with the management. When we talk management, this is what we call our client, right? The person who actually handles the financial of the company, or the company that we're auditing. And from part of that particular company also, they have those charged with governance. So who is actually those charged with governance? People that we call as those charged with governance normally is a board of directors of the company. So we talk to them in terms of the whether is there any fraud happen, right? We try to understand from their perspective too. And auditors also interact with the users. When we talk about users, it is not only it is actually quite wide, right? It is actually come from the regulators, it come from the shareholders' perspective, it come from the bankers, right? The debtors, or the customer or the vendor of the company. And auditors also interact with the regulators in Malaysia. For example, for public listed company, we have one regulator that we call it as audit oversight board. So they monitor how the auditors perform audit for the public listed company. And for example, Malaysia Institute of Accountant also, they actually monitor the performance, or maybe the compliance of their member as well as an MIA member. Okay, so in our work, right, as an auditor, there's one concept what we call as professional skepticism. Okay, so what is professional skepticism? Okay, professional skepticism is about a questioning mind, meaning that when we hear something, when we hear from our client, when we hear from anyone out there, right, from the perspective of when we perform our audit, we didn't take it 100% as true. So what we do is we ask for the question, we ask for supporting documents, we look for contradictory evidence before we affirm what we understand from that particular matters. Okay, so what we call it as a questioning mind. We need to ask questions more and more, and cannot accept 100% or straight away what we heard from our client. This is what we call as professional skepticism, right? So we observe this professional skepticism when we perform our audit, from the very beginning, which is planning stage, throughout the audit, during performing the audit work, and when we conclude our audit work, right? So in the later, what they call it, video, we are going to share with you, right, how the auditors use the professional skepticism in their work. Okay, right. So before we watch the video, maybe I would like to do a knowledge check first. I will ask this question. Okay, feel free to answer, whether it's through chat or maybe you can just unmute your microphone and answer it accordingly. So the first question is, what ISA number covers the auditor's responsibility relating to the fraud in an audit of the financial statements?
ISA 24.
Anyone? You can feel free to unmute your microphone, or you can just join in the chat box. Yeah, we can see from Haslinda. Yeah, ISA 240. So going forward, you need to remember this ISA. So when we talk about ISA 240, is actually related to fraud. When we talk about a fraud, we talk about this ISA 240. Right? So the ISA 240 is talking about the auditor's responsibility to consider fraud when they perform the audit. Right. Next. Right. Next question. What are the 3 factors on the fraud triangle? A, B, or C? Hello guys, you can use the annotate function at the top of your screen view option there to select the answer that you think is appropriate. Yeah. Right, so I can see a lot of people answering as A. Anyone B and C or C? Okay, so the right answer is
The right answer is
yes, the right answer is A. Okay, so the three factors in the fraud triangle is financial pressure, opportunity, as well as rationalization. Next. Okay, as an auditor of an audit engagement, who do we usually interact with? Okay, is it with the management or those charged with governance or director of the company, users, regulator, or E, all of the above? Again, you can use the annotate button, yeah, or you can use the chat. Okay, so the answer is
E.
all of the above, E. Very good. Okay, next. Okay, so next question. Who is the primarily responsible person for the prevention and detection of fraud? Select two appropriate answers. Is it a management, or is it a those charged with governance, or is it an auditor, or is it a regulator?
Management.
Who is the two primarily responsible person for the prevention and detection of fraud?
Sekejap.
Who actually responsible? Okay, there's someone answer B and C. Anyone else wanted to try? Okay, B and C also. Right. Okay, the answer is A and B. Okay, maybe because of the incorrect answer, let me deliberate a little bit on this. Okay, so the person that is primarily responsible for the prevention and detection of fraud lies with the management and people which is sitting in the board, which is those charged with governance. As an auditor, we are required to consider the fraud when we perform the audit. So the primary responsible is not false to the auditors, but we have to be responsible. The difference is actually the primarily responsible. Who is the primarily responsible? Auditors is responsible to consider fraud in our audit work, but we are not the primarily responsible person. Okay, the primary responsible person falls under within the company itself, which is the management and also those charged with governance. Okay, hope clear. So I think we are not going to do the 5 minutes break. Let's go to the next slide. Okay, we are going to watch a video. We call it as D. Merton video, fault assurance. This particular slide shows the main cast, right, of the video. There's a senior executive director called as Richard Dalton. You will see him very, very frequent in the video. He is the CEO or Chief Executive Officer, right? And there's another guy called Alex Fryan. He is the CFO, Chief Financial Officer. And a very dominant guy called Tom Noble. He is the Director of Global Sales. Very seldom you see Amistal Chopra, but she is the General Counsel and Company Secretary. And there's another guy called Chris Perry, Head of IT. Okay. In the video also, you're going to see a lot of meetings carried on by non-executive directors, led by Roger Tillman. He is the chairman. And there is another lady called Liz Harris. She is the Audit and Risk Committee chair. And there are the two directors in the board meeting. In this particular video, there's a group of accountants. We call it as TYSL accountants. They are the auditors of D. Merton. Okay. The audit team in the past was led by Patrick Leon, but was taken over by another new partner called Sarah Hancock. And senior audit manager called Joe Russell, and there is a 2 audit junior called Sam Keating, as well as Dan Sommer, right? So we are going to go on part 1 of the video. Watch the video, try to understand the story. Right after the video, I'm going to so-called do a little bit of brief, and also you will test your knowledge by asking questions. So you enjoy your video.
January 2011. I was the CFO at Deloitte, a very profitable high-tech company with revenues of over 400 million. Deloitte's fortunes had been boosted a few years earlier when it acquired the S1 technology behind a revolutionary radar system. The launch of S1A, our first system, had surpassed all expectations and was followed by 2 more successful versions. I was preparing in January 2011 for the first board meeting to be chaired by Roger Tillman. Roger had been appointed to succeed our long-standing chairman, who had retired through ill health. We'd all been surprised, as we'd expected an appointment from within the existing board. Richard Dalton had arrived as CEO 2 years previously, just before the launch of S1C. While the board had been criticized for the size of Richard's remuneration package, he had delivered. Impressive sales for S1C, solid results from other divisions, and a string of strategic acquisitions. His deferred share bonuses meant that Richard's focus was still on long-term share price growth. At the end of 2010, Deloitte's rivals had launched a range of new systems. But our next generation S1D system promised to be a game changer and was only a few months away from release. We thought everything was in place for a successful future. But how wrong we all were.
I met last week with Chris Perry, the company's new head of IT. He was concerned about the robustness of the company's defenses against attack. Given the value in our innovative designs.
But my committee considered the results of penetration testing only a few months ago, just before Chris arrived. And this didn't raise any significant issues.
But the firm doing the testing was the same firm that designed the defenses, and the testing had been confined to the main design database.
Wouldn't that be the main target of any cyber attack?
Of course, but attackers will look for any weak access point across our system.
So what are you proposing?
I think we need an independent assessment of the company's defenses to cyber attack across all our systems. As the lead partners rotating off, will your committee be considering whether TYSL should be reappointed as auditors next year? Might make sense to freshen things up a bit after such a long mandate.
Yes, it's all in hand. I've already asked for a proposal. Hello.
But Liz thought she'd be appointed chair. And while she has her supporters, including me, the nominations committee put you a candidate. She just thinks with this cyber thing that you're already questioning her judgment.
Why do the auditors think that there's an impairment trigger?
For fallen S1A sales, I've been asked to produce a spreadsheet showing cash flow forecasts justifying the current value.
But Tom is currently negotiating a couple of big deals to install S1A systems.
That'll help. But the current value can only be supported by including revenue from S1B and S1C. The auditors have queried whether that's appropriate given how much the technology has been developed away from the original. With S1A revenue only, we're looking at a material write-down.
Well, I hope you push back hard. We can't take another big hit like that. You only just hit our profit target.
I'm hardly the right person to argue how much of the original technology is used.
Shall I get one of our tech boys to give them the assurance they need?
Does anyone here know what an orange peel paraboloid is?
No. Neither did I.
Apparently all three systems had one, demonstrating their similarities. I don't mind admitting that I left that meeting completely baffled. And I don't believe I was the only one.
So, without including S1B and S1C sales in the forecast, a significant impairment would have been required?
Correct.
The forecast revenue for S1A looks generous to me, given last year's sales and the new models in the market.
There appears to be a good market among poorer countries that can't afford the latest models. The company's currently negotiating multiple S1A sales with two smaller
How
countries.
definite are these deals?
I've seen signed letters of intent.
Not binding then. But I guess it comes down to how comfortable you are that the US rely on the original technology.
The technology is pretty complex, but we met with the head of technology and came away with sufficient assurance that the S1B and S1C systems are still built around the original technology.
I'm not sure any of us are in a position to second guess the experts or your judgment that there's a sufficient link.
Everyone's in a good mood. Did you hear? He's standing for senior partner. Well, he's got a good chance. How did you find your first audit?
Oh, too many long nights, too many spreadsheets.
Tell me about it.
I was wondering, how did that issue get resolved in the end? Those payments to Primentel that I showed you?
I mentioned it to Patrick. He met with Richard and got the assurances he needed. I think Richard confirmed that Primentel's engagement had ended.
Was Primentel not a related party?
He told me that the sister had resigned before Primentel was engaged. And Richard told Patrick that none of his family had any continuing interest in Primentel. What about that? We're not here to talk about work.
Has everyone had a chance to read the consultant's report? Chris, introduce us, please.
Thank you, Roger. The consultants have carried out over 20 different pen tests, analysing a range of vulnerabilities, including browser exploits, DOS attacks, phishing.
Just the findings and the options, please.
Sure. The tests have identified 50 serious flaws in our defences across all systems, including the design database. We're particularly vulnerable because we have 4 different IT systems running within the group, inherited from our acquisition, and each of them has different levels of protection.
Okay, Asha nak infinite.
And there are 2 options.
Yes, the first option is a replacement of the central parts of our existing infrastructure. This would take 9 months and involve the outsourcing of some key IT functions.
Won't help weaken our defences further.
No, not if we use reputable providers and are careful about what functions we outsource. The second option is upgrading our existing infrastructure. This would happen over a period of about 2 to 3 years.
No outsourcing.
Correct, but
Asha kalau
this
nak
is a
dapat ibu
patch
betul, jangan kacau
rather
ibu.
than an overhaul.
Ibu ada kerja ni.
Aside from the cyber risk, we have a pressing need to unify our systems.
We have funding issues.
Option 2 spreads the cost and the cash flow impact over a longer period, so it's manageable. Option 1 is more expensive and involves a big upfront cash outlay.
Ibu kerja dulu ya.
As we're at the limit of our current facilities,
Negotiating with the bank and higher borrowing costs.
Has someone actually managed to access the systems?
Well, no, but the number of malicious attempts has dramatically risen over the past 12 months.
All unsuccessful?
Yes.
Any more questions for Chris? No? Thank you, Chris.
Janganlah, begini atas Kak Ya.
So, any other views?
It's not something I have any experience of or frankly understanding. Until I read this report, I thought fishing was something you did with a rod.
I'm struggling too. It's not clear to me how real this risk is, but I'm concerned about extending bank facilities.
I'm getting the sense that I'm the only one favouring the first option. Okay, let's go with option 2, but on the basis that the project starts as soon as possible.
Would you have understood these issues better than D. Merton's directors? How many of you would have voted for option 2? Okay. The committee's recommendation that TYSL be reappointed as auditors for the next year was also accepted, despite Roger favouring a change. The committee had been persuaded by the proposal that Sarah Hancock would lead next year's engagement. Now, Sarah had been senior manager when Patrick Lyon took over the engagement and had subsequently made partner herself. I shared Liz's belief that this was the ideal combination. A new perspective from someone who understood how the company operated.
So will this officially request to get his hands on the charitable donation?
I
don't know. You did say sales of S1A should be a priority. We could fund the donation by making a payment to Premintel. I know about that. Remember the audit partner asking me questions about my connection to Premintel. You said he accepted all your assurances. Didn't even ask for any reports. We could make smaller payments. Reduce the attention. It's still risky. Do we have a choice?
Okay, so we have ended the part 1 of the video. Let me do a quick debrief on what happened in the part 1 of the video. This video is in relation to Merton, a high-tech company. They actually developed S1 technology, so they are now at the stage S1D. So before that, they have S1A, they have also S1B, as well as S1C. So before they launched the S1D, 1 month before they launched, they realized that this particular technology that they are going to sell having an issue, meaning that the system is not well developed, right? They will trigger, a lot of cyber attack issues. They have 50 serious flaws when they actually tested the system. Okay, so the audit committee deliberated 2 options, whether they want to replace the infrastructure system itself, which is take about 9 months to complete, but it requires an upfront cash payment. Okay, or they can actually upgrade the system, and it takes longer period of 2 to 3 years. But this is actually not a replacement, that is a patches, meaning that it fixes part by part, whichever part of the system that have an issue. Okay. On top of that, the chairman of the non-executive director, Royal Tillman, requested a change of auditors from TYSL due to the long-term relationship. Because as an auditor, when they serve the client for very long period, it is exposed, the auditors is actually exposed to what they call it familiarity threat. Familiarity threat means the auditors become less independent and can be biased because of the long relationship. Okay, so at the end, the non-executive directors has decided to stick with TYSL accountants, but the TYSL actually changed the audit partner. So Sarah Hancock is actually replacing Patrick Lyon as an audit partner. It's a good move because Sarah actually did an audit of this particular Merton in the past, but since she made partner, she will bring a new perspective during the audit of the Merton. Okay, and they also talks about impairment, right? When we talk about impairment, it means the assets of the company, which is basically the system, S1 tag, carries a lower value than what it expected, right? So when we talk about impairment, they always link with the performance of the asset itself. So they talk about sales of S1 system, right? When they talk about sales of S1 system, if you could notice to the end of this particular video, there's a discussion between Tom Noble and also Richard Dalton, talking about official asking for donation in order to, buy the system. It's kind of a bribery, attempt, right, happening in the company, and they actually mentioned one company name called Fremantle. So this Fremantle is actually a related party company of Richard Dalston, where the sister actually worked in that particular company before. Right. So this is actually the debrief part 1. Let's go to the knowledge check question. Right. So, what is the concern on the S1D technology owned by D. Merton? Is there any concern or not? Okay. So, A, no concern. The S1 technology owned by D. Merton are well operated. B, the S1 technology has risk with cyber attacks due to 50 serious flaws in the defense system. Yeah, you can use the chat button, or you can use the annotation button. Okay, right. So the answer is B. Okay. The S1 technology has a risk of cyber attack due to 50 serious flaws in the defensive system. It means cyber attack can just go into the company system and can replicate the software and can do whatever they want in the accounting system or system within the company itself. Okay, so next question. The previous audit partner asked about Richard Dalton relationship with Fremantle, which Richard Dalton has responded as no relationship with Fremantle. No further question from the audit partner. Is professional skepticism being applied by the audit partner? Yes or no? Remember about the professional skepticism, we talking about, questioning mind. So when the audit partner asks the relationship, right, did he actually ask further? Okay, so the answer is no. So what you can see from the conversation towards the end of the video, the audit partner accepted Richard Dalston's explanation, on the relationship between D. Merton and also Fremantle. Okay, right? Next. Okay, so let's go to the part 2 of the video.
Which means the redesign will take several months and then require testing. So the launch can't take place.
Aisyah pergi raya boleh tak?
How come S1D gets so far and then need a redesign? I mean, why weren't the key elements tested earlier?
Testing was pushed back from April to the end of July, due to the delays in the final development phase.
Why wasn't the board made aware of these problems?
I was assured that it would not. Then we still have.
We've said it about a few days.
We're now in March.
Pen tu Aisyah. Dah, pergi tengok depan ni. Boleh tak? Minta ayah dulu. Ayah kasih kat atas. Minta ayah dulu.
Right. I wanted us to hold an early discussion on fraud risks to help with the audit planning. And after today, if anyone has concerns about anything they see during the audit, please let me or Joe know.
Rosak lah laptop ayah tu. Janganlah cerita conteng. Nanti ayah marah ibu tak tahu
But how much did you and Joe really understand at that meeting? I've seen the presentation. But the cash flow forecast relies much more on S1C sales compared to last year. Take those sales out and we're looking at a material adjustment. All I said to Alex is that I'll be bringing an independent technology expert to the meeting with the chief tech guy. If I'd known you'd bump into it at the dinner last night, I'd have briefed you. No. I don't know what I'll do if that's his conclusion. Yes. Yes, I talked to you before making a decision.
Reservation at a table for 4 for Tom.
So, given the very subjective nature of the judgments, we really can't accept the substantially increased impairment proposal.
Final profit could be reduced by nearly 30%, and we'd be in breach of our bank covenants.
I hear what you say, I do. But I don't believe I or any other members of the committee can easily ignore the conclusions of an independent expert with extensive experience in technology design.
Our senior tech guys dispute the report's conclusions, and the auditors are being inconsistent. Last year, they accepted the link between the original technology and S1C.
Well, so did my committee. But since reading this report, I've been wondering whether we should have accepted the figures last year quite so quickly. I'll need to consult with other members of the committee on this.
So what are you working on?
Nothing exciting. Just some testing of expenditure.
Oh yeah? I did some of that last year. Anything interesting? You haven't come across a supplier called Prim and Tell, have you?
I don't think so. Why? I checked it. Payments are still being made to Prementil. More than last year, in fact.
Thanks. Maybe don't mention this to Joe.
I sent Charles a copy of the auditor's expert's report, and he believes you must at least ignore future S1C revenue in the forecast.
But Liz, is there really enough in the report to justify such a large adjustment?
Roger, you know as well as I do we can't work backwards from the consequences to form a judgment on the accounting. Yes, the expert's view is subjective. Yes, there's still some reliance on the original technology, but do I now feel comfortable in maintaining the current technology value in this year's accounts? No, I don't.
Do you have a minute? You said we should tell you if we came across anything concerning.
Yes.
Well, payments are still being made this year to Prim and Tell, the company supplying those intelligence reports.
We looked into this last year. Sam flagged up this supplier due to issues with its invoices. Sam also noticed that Richard Dalton's sister was one of Prementel's founding directors, but the sister had resigned before Prementel was engaged.
Did she maintain any ownership in Prementel?
It's unclear. All shares are held by offshore companies.
I briefed Patrick on all of this. He met with Richard, I think he was shown some reports, and Richard assured him that none of his family had any continuing ownership or control over Primintel.
So why is there a problem with the continuing payments?
Primintel's engagement was supposed to have ended, and yet payments have continued, become more frequent.
Well, so they changed their minds, so what?
Well, I couldn't find any reports on last year's file, so I did an internet search of the current directors. While Richard's sister may have resigned, her husband, Richard's brother-in-law, is still one of the directors.
Well, here it is, the latest trying to put me out of the job. I still don't believe that write-down was necessary. And your new senior partner had no problem accepting the valuation. Let's hope you've no more nasty surprises. If there's anything else I can help.
There is one thing I might need to ask you about.
Really? Well, I'm here now.
Don't think this is the right place.
Nonsense. Ask away, please.
It's about Primintel, that Intel company.
Yes.
We've been struggling to get hold of any of the reports produced by Primintel this year. Tom Noble is away, and neither his secretary nor yours know where the reports are.
Well, that's restricted access. They contain very sensitive information.
We'll need to see them in order to close down that inquiry.
I understand. I'll get them sent over.
I did have another question about your family's links to Primintel.
I told Patrick that all ended some time ago.
I know, but I understand your brother-in-law remains one of the directors.
That's not true. My ex-brother-in-law, Mike. Yeah, he's still a director. Mike's good at gathering info, particularly on your competitors, but well, as my sister will tell you, he's a complete nightmare to live with. After they split, I got to know Mike's team really well and saw how good they were at gathering intelligence. Samantha, good to see you.
Richard, leaving so early?
Well, I was having a good time. Your protégé started her interrogation.
Really?
Insurance I gave you about my family having no connection with Primintel. And apparently, it's not good enough for her. She doesn't believe that the reports exist until she sees them. What gets me most is that Primintel isn't even a major supplier. So why so much time being wasted on this? After the write-down fiasco, I'm beginning to wonder whether she really knows what she's doing.
Hi.
What happened between you and Richard on Tuesday evening?
Nothing. He was in a foul mood. It's no wonder. Have you seen this morning's announcement? They've had to postpone the launch again until September. The share price has taken a big hit.
Really? When I caught up with him, he said he was tired of being interrogated.
He asked me whether he could help with anything.
And you asked him about Primintel?
I've been told the brother-in-law was still a director, but it turns out that he and Richard's sister divorced some time ago.
Why didn't you talk to me first? I got assurances about this last year.
You didn't know about the brother-in-law back then. I had to ask him. Not disclosing a family interest would be an integrity concern.
So the issue's now closed?
Not quite. Did you see any reports last year? There are no copies on file. My interrogation has led to us receiving a pile of Primintel reports this morning, which are being reviewed. I've added an extra line in this management rep letter for Richard to confirm there's no continuing family interest in Primintel. There's been a recent connection, and Primintel ownership is unclear. If there's no interest, there's no problem.
Are you sure you really needed that? With the launch being postponed again, you'll be feeling a great deal of pressure. I'm not really sure what I'm looking for, Joe. I didn't have much time to discuss it.
Siapa tu nanti gigi belum
Don't be like that. I'll try and get there as soon as I can. Bye.
Jangan lah.
Mak cerita apa?
Did you get through them all?
Ibu nak cerita apa
Yep.
ni?
They all check out? Any issues?
Dah lah, di sana.
Make sure you do a note for the file.
Ibu nak handphone.
Malam kau dah pergi tengah kerja ni.
Didn't expect to see you in today.
Ibu
How's
dah
your mother?
lihat tau. Ibu dah lihat.
Sorry for Bailey.
Ibu kita.
Want me to do anything more on that
Asyik kita
Pimentel
tengok TV
issue?
dulu. Ajak.
Sarah's not comfortable with that.
Ampun,
Turns out your
Ana.
research wasn't completely accurate. That director is Richard's
Ampun,
ex-brother-in-law.
Ana.
Really?
Ni mak Ana,
I'm
Ibu.
sorry, that was my fault. Did you want me to have a look at the
Ni
Pimentel
mak
report?
Ana.
Dan reviewed them
Tengok kat
well.
ayah, minta ayah.
Sarah said she wanted confirmation this morning before she signs off. You just concentrate on tidying up any loose ends.
Okay, so we have ended the part 2 of the video. Okay, in the video we can hear very frequently people talks about Pimentel, right? This is the concept of related party that I would like to introduce to all of you. So the related party means that the company of which having close relationship to the management, to the directors of another company. Okay, it could be from the perspective of immediate family ownership in terms of share. It could be from the perspective of common director. It could be from the perspective of similar management personnel or something like that, right? So in this particular case, the audit partner Sarah Hancock was informed that Pimentel, one of the board of directors is actually Richard Dalton's. The previous audit partner, which is Patrick Leon, mentioned that they have no longer had a connection between, Pimentel. The sisters actually resigned from Pimentel, but after that they find out that the Richard's sister's husband, which is the brothers-in-law, is actually with Pimentel, right? And in particular video, they also talks about the delay in terms of the S1D system, which requires redesign, and it will be launched a later part of the year, which is in the month of September. So because of the delay, it will actually reduce the investor confidence of the company, and thus the share price will be dropped significantly, right? And back to Pimentel. Pimentel actually produced intelligent report to Deloitte in relation to the S1D, right? The company or Deloitte has been paying a lot of money to Pimentel, and by right the engagement with Pimentel is supposed to be ended, but it is not ended, and the money or the payment more frequent, right? And this actually gives rise to a concern to the Sarah Hancock, which is the new audit partner. She's actually try to investigate more about Pimentel. You can see how she actually apply the professional skepticism mind by asking a report rather than listening to the representation made by Richard Dalton about his relationship with Pimentel. Okay, so maybe next we go to the knowledge check from this particular part 2 of the video. Okay, the first question that I would like to ask is Pimentel relationship to Deloitte relevant to be considered by auditors in the audit work? Yes or no? Anyone can answer in the chat box, maybe can annotate. Okay, so the answer is the answer is yes, right? Why parental relationship is relevant to be considered? Because of the related party. When the company has another related party, since it is within, control, civil control, right? They can manipulate a lot of things together. They can be colluded to do something, which is fraudulent together. That's why in our work, we always ask a question about who is the related party of the company that we are actually auditing. So in this particular case, Fremantle is a related party of Tim Burton, of which requires to be investigated. Okay, next. Is it appropriate that Dan, the audit junior, been assigned to read the Fremantle report by Joe Russell, the scene audit manager? Okay, is a yes or no? Okay, so the answer is no, right? Reason being is because the Fremantle report is very complex. Sommer, which is the audit junior, struggled to understand the report. He mentioned that he do not know what he's looking at, from the report itself. And Joe Russell, which is a senior audit manager, supposed to identify the right person to read the report. Yeah, it could be himself. Also, it could be an audit partner itself, because the complexity of the report. Yeah, so because of when the person reading the report having lack of experience, they do not know what they're actually looking for. Okay, so maybe we go to the next. Right, this is a 3 of the video.
I just don't know how much we can rely on the S1B launch. It's got to be a big success if we're going to hit this year's forecast.
Definitely going to happen this September.
It's got to. Or it won't just be the tech boys getting fired. Roger already blames me for the delay. Last year's results haven't helped.
Sounds like you could do with some good news. We've made the short list for that big tender in New Genaria.
What's the catch?
The official wants an incentive to choose our system. He prefers someone else's. I thought we could use Premintel again.
That's not going to work.
I don't believe this. Another crooked official.
There's 2,000 people in this company. Their jobs rely on us bringing in these contracts. Politicians, they just don't realise it.
It's all right. I know what I can do.
Hey, what brings you down here?
I've had a tech security firm recommended to me. I was hoping you might be able to use them.
Oh, I'm sorry, I've already awarded all the contracts for Phase 3.
That's a shame. I was really hoping you'd be able to use them.
Where did you get this?
You got another baby on the way too. Exciting times. So can we start this conversation again? I've had a cybersecurity firm recommend.
What's
that an email? All right. See you another deal? Great. Mind if I call Richard, let him know? So my manager was chasing payment on the new Genaria contract, and he was told that they were suspending all payments. The official who signed it has been suspended on suspicion of taking bribes on 2 other contracts. What? They're not paying until they've investigated all contracts, including ours.
I'll find nothing wrong with ours.
What I can't understand is why we didn't use our normal agent on this deal. And why weren't due diligence checks carried out on the new agent?
Richard, we need to talk.
I don't know what I'm supposed to have done wrong.
Asking Tom whether he's been paying bribes for starters.
I didn't. I asked him why he'd left our usual agent out of this deal and how much he could trust the new one.
No one's made any allegation against us. Lots of companies have had their payments suspended.
I still think we should be flagging this up to the audit and risk committee.
There's nothing to report. Do you know how long it took me to talk down Tom? He's threatening to quit if he ends up the subject of some witch hunt. And you know how many good deals he brings into this company. We wait.
No pressure then. How many of you would have reported it to the audit and risk committee at this time? That's very interesting.
But no allegation has been made. It's a serious step to start an investigation into a senior manager. I think we should wait.
Do you agree?
No, I don't. If this official's been seeking bribes on other contracts, why not us too? Why didn't we use our normal agent?
I agree with Charles. I also think we need some assurance on this in case the media pick it up.
Can internal audit investigate this?
Shouldn't we use external lawyers and forensic accountants?
I suggested an internal review because we need to act quickly and discreetly.
If we are going to investigate, we should bring in the specialists. A lot of the work can be done remotely and discreetly.
Okay. External it is then.
Do you know what it feels like to be questioned for hours like a suspected criminal? I thought we agreed the committee didn't need to know unless an allegation was made.
We didn't agree anything. That was what you said.
I was right. The lawyers didn't find any irregularities with the contract. No issues with the agents. No suspicious outflows of money authorized by Tom at the time.
I still think they needed to know.
Even with all the damage he's caused. Tom thinks that it'll be difficult for him to remain here with all these rumors that are flying around.
Our lawyers say we could sue to enforce the contract, but that all 4 countries have a very strong defense due to the S1D launch delay. Chances are we'd lose.
So, 4 down. Out of the remaining 11 pre-orders, how many have been reconfirmed?
5 for definite. We're still waiting for reconfirmation from the other 6.
Alex will need a reforecast on S1D revenues for the board meeting. Are we getting any understanding as to why the orders are being cancelled?
2 of the countries have said they're going to produce their own. But it's just not credible they have the expertise.
That's if they are developing their own.
Richard, it's Chris. We'll be meeting.
It's unclear what was copied, but access was gained to the design database on 4 occasions on the 23rd of February, including access to the blueprints for S1D.
I thought the database defenses had been upgraded in the first day.
They were, but the attackers didn't gain entry directly. They went in via a subsidiary of ours and their finance systems. From there, they were then able to navigate into our central finance system and create their own internal login credentials. Those IDs gave them access to all systems, including the design database.
Why didn't we know about this in February?
It was a sophisticated attack. The credentials that they created matched our in-house format, so the auto-detection software didn't flag the attack.
Have we upgraded those defenses since?
Yes. If they had attacked 1 month later, then that entry point would have been strengthened in the next phase of the project.
We don't know whether the cancellations are linked to the attack how many more will cancel, and how hard profits will be hit. But we need to consider making a disclosure to the market. And
The cancellations. Are there any other problems we should know about?
My other headaches are never-ending IT projects. The costs are going up to pace.
Well, it is an IT project.
Yes, but the phase 3 overruns are well beyond our contingency. I've told Chris that he needs to flag up much earlier any significant overspend. Hi, Alicia. Listen, how extensive was the investigator's review of payments? No wonder. No, that's all I needed. I'll call you later. Hi, can you get me please all invoices and contracts on the IT project? Thank you.
Issue with the IT project invoice. I raised it in my meeting with Chris this morning. He assured me that the work on the main hub ID system was carried out by that contractor.
Well, that's strange. The manager I spoke to was pretty certain the work was being done by an internal team. One of Chris's cost-saving measures, he said.
Sounds like he was mistaken. Hardly surprising given how many different work streams they've had.
But he was so sure.
The work's been done. The supplier's on the approved list.
So what do we do now?
Nothing. Remember Premintel? We've got the assurance from a senior manager, so write it up and move on. Plenty more to be getting on with.
I'm going to be home in 20 minutes. I just need to check something out for work.
Sorry about the short notice and cryptic messages, but this couldn't wait. We've got concerns about some of the payments on the IT project.
You're not alone. I've just been going through some of these contracts and invoices. A number of phase 3 contractors don't appear to have much of a trading history. I was just about to get internal audit involved.
That may not be necessary.
The investigators have reviewed all the IT contracts. They've identified 5 payments made to 3 bogus suppliers, all controlled by Tom's associates. The police have now started their own investigation, so we can't interview him. Our lawyers have been told, off the record, that a payment from one of these companies was made to an account believed to be controlled by the official in New Genaria.
What about Chris?
Well, he's cooperated fully. He seems to have been blackmailed by Tom over an extramarital affair. He says he thought it was a one-off and then was asked to make more payments. He claims to know nothing about the bribes, and there's no evidence to suggest he knew or that he took any of the money himself. Nevertheless, the lawyers still recommend that we terminate his contract.
The 2 of the larger payments were co-authorized by Richard. He'd have been anxious to keep revenue coming in to keep the stock price up.
Well, Richard pointed out, correctly, that he's authorized other large payments on the IT. These suppliers were bogus. He denies any knowledge of the bribes or the fraud, and nothing suggests otherwise in a review of his emails.
And has the investigation now concluded?
All of the work in the scope set by the committee has been completed. However, the lawyers think they should review transactions before and outside of the IT project to get assurance that there's nothing else.
Is that really necessary? Is there any evidence to suggest that bribes were paid earlier or funded outside?
The IT payments made by the company over the last 5 years, looking for other bogus suppliers, and no other companies were identified.
I can't see any reason then to extend. The costs are enormous already.
Well, I don't think we can be criticised for stopping here. Agreed? Thank you.
Okay, we have ended part 3 of the video. The main content of this part 3 is in relation to the officials in New Generaia actually asked for incentive to buy S1D. Okay? Tom as well as Richard, deals with this, right? And then subsequently, the officials of the New Generaia has been caught of having corruption issues, right? Of accepting a bribery. So the non-executive directors, feel very concerned about this. And another issue is about the contracts, the sales contract of which they have secured earlier on. Out of this particular S1D sales, subsequently has been cancelled. So the question is why the sale has been cancelled. Whether is the customer actually has their own technology or otherwise, right? And the third issues that arose from this particular part 3 of the video, talking about the never-ending IT project costs. IT project normally very expensive, but the CFO has realized that the cost has been escalated so heavily, so high, right, in relation to this particular IT project. And if you could see that there's a lady called Sam Keating, she's the audit junior, how she exercised her professional skepticism when doing a plant visit, right, to see where Fremantle actually located at. Yeah, whether Fremantle is really a company that, having a business or otherwise, right? So let's go to the question. Right. The first question, in investigating fraud case, which is the best party that could carry out investigation and provide more reliable results? Is it the internal audit department of the merchant or it is an external forensic auditors? Can I see more reply, please? Yep. So the answer is B, the external forensic auditors, right? Okay, next question. Okay, Tom Noble and Richard colluded with the official in New Generaia in order to win the tender by involving bribe and incentive. Which fraud triangle think most suitable that caused them to do so, right? Whether it's a financial pressure, whether it is a rationalization, or whether it is an opportunity. Remember, there's a fraud triangle that we actually explained earlier on. Okay, so which one you think the main reason, why Tom Noble and Richard colluded to pay official in New Generaia the bribe? Okay. Any more question? Any more answer? Can I see more answer? Response? Okay. So the answer is A, financial pressure. Okay, so let me elaborate on this. Okay, the main fraud triangle that caused Tom and Richard, do such thing is because of the financial pressure. Remember, Tom as well as Richard talking about the profitability level, right? The KPI. They are under pressure to report good profitability level, right? Thus, having high sales and turn out to a good profitability will be very, very much, hard pressure for them. So that's why the answer is actually a financial pressure. But some of you actually answer opportunity. Well, this is also an answer, but it's not the most suitable answer. Reason being is because Richard and Tom, they are actually the main person, right, that drive the performance of the company. If you could notice, no one actually questioned them, about, how their performance. No one challenged them because Tom, for example, knowingly a top sales person, right? And what do you call it? Richard has drive the company to a greater height in terms of the performance. So there's a lot of opportunity for both of them to do something right within the company, even until to the extent to give right or incentive. Okay, and another one is actually rationalization. Yeah, this is also a correct answer, but it is not the main fraud risk triangle answer. Okay, because Richard and Tom always think that the auditors cannot catch, in terms of the fictitious payment made or incentive paid via Fremantle, for example, because auditors in the past has accepted that Fremantle is not a related company of the company, right? And there is also a change in the partner. So when they think that there is a change in partner, they think that the auditors cannot catch them. Yeah. So the answer is actually financial pressure. It's the most suitable answer. Okay, next. Okay, let's go to the last part of the video, which concluded everything.
Well, at least it draws a line under the whole sorry business. What's up? I thought you'd be happier.
I've been uncomfortable since hearing about Richard signing off on 2 of the larger payments. Made me wonder about those payments he authorised to Premintel for reports used by Tom.
But you satisfied yourself about the relationship with Premintel. And you got hold of all the reports and had them checked. And you got Richard to sign a rep letter confirming that there was no family link.
I took it out. You said...
Doesn't matter. You told us both there was no link and there was no evidence suggesting otherwise.
But what if the bribes started earlier? Were funded by payments to genuine suppliers? I think I should discuss this with Liz.
Think carefully before doing that. If you point them in the direction of the relationship with Premintel, then there's no problem. You'll be criticised for extending an expensive investigation. If it turns out there was a problem with those payments, then the next questions you're going to be asked are why you didn't realise they weren't genuine, and why the rep letter didn't deal with the family connection.
The share price had just recovered from the profits warning when Tom Noble, Director of Sales, was arrested on suspicion of bribery. Well, I had a dilemma. I still had the feeling there was more, which hadn't yet come out. I couldn't stop wondering whether Richard had also been involved. He'd been so adamant the new Genaria deal shouldn't be reported to the committee, and his bonuses were tied to the share price. And, I wondered, why our chief tech guy had quit so soon after that write-down. I'd heard the rumors. So what did I do? I followed my instincts.
Okay, so finally the CFO made a right decision to report to the committee, and action has been taken to the if party, which is the Richard Dalton, as well as the Tom Noble, the director of sales. Yeah. So question: what are the key messages that you took from the scenario of this particular Dean Merton video? Anyone? Feel free to either write in chat box, or maybe you can just unmute your microphone to speak out something. Anyone?
From the scenario.
What are the key messages that you can understand from the scenario? Okay, maybe we just cover the answer. Right. The first one, there is a lack of professional skepticism being exercised by the previous audit partner. Yeah, but the level of professional skepticism that been exercised by the new engagement team, that's really good. Yeah, especially from Sam Keating, which is the audit junior. She go to the extent of doing a site visit to check whether Fremantle is actually a real company or otherwise. Yeah. Second, right, financial pressure may lead to fraud. This actually the main driving factor that the company or the senior management of the company always do, right? Because the remuneration package normally peg to the profitability of the company. Thus, when they have a financial pressure in terms of reporting a good results of the company, it can strongly lead to fraud. Okay, so next, what will you do differently to exercise professional skepticism? Okay, so what we can do is we can use a specialist for complex area, especially when we read a very complex agreement that been entered by the client and together with the party. Maybe next you could also inquire with evidence, meaning that not accepting straight away the representation made by client, but to ask for evidence. For example, in this case, Sarah Hancock did ask for the report, right? That Fremantle produced, on top of what she already heard from Richard. Next, assigning inappropriate level of staff in dealing complex issue could cause problem, right? That's why you need to be skeptical even in assigning level. Whether they can actually, deal with the complex issue or otherwise. Yeah. So next. Right. This is so-called questions that been prepared by R. Kathy Hertz, Associate Professor of Baylor University. In answering this question, right, you can actually answer whether you strongly disagree by marking answer number 1, and to answer number 6, which is you strongly agree on the question. You try to complete every statement of the question, and you try to mark yourself. So maybe next slide. Yeah, these are the question. You can try to read and marking where you position when you addressing the question, whether you actually strongly agree with the statement or strongly disagree with the statement. Okay, so maybe to the next slide. There's further question. Okay, again, do the same, which is to answer strongly disagree or strongly agree based on your assessment of yourself. Right. This is actually to assess whether you are actually a skeptical person or not. Maybe after this session, I will get Miss June to send over the question again to maybe the what do you call it, to Alia. Then Alia will actually distribute to you. Right. Okay, next. Right. An attitude of professional skepticism means, again, is a recap. Auditors will need to have a critical assessment with a questioning mind on the validity of the audit evidence that they obtain. Right? They also need to be alert on the audit evidence that have contradictory element, and bring into the question that are reliable to the document and also responses, inquire further and obtain more information from the management as well as those charged with governance. Right. So to conclude, right, I think if you could answer that particular two slides before, right, there's actually no right or wrong answer. The average mark is normally 76 for professional auditors. So later on, if let's say you go through again the question, I will send to Alia on the question, right? Try to answer. As long as you have an average of 76 and above, you actually have skeptical mind in mind. Yeah, you have actually exercised a professional skepticism. Yeah, you have a level of professional skepticism within yourself. Okay, so is there any question that you would like to pose before I end this session? You can feel free to chat, write in the chat box, or maybe unmute your microphone. Okay.
Okay, I'm Izadi. I will be in charge in this Q&A session. So I'll be read the question I got from my friend. So the first one, does Deloitte have an internship program or industrial training for fresh graduates who want to take for experience before they are fully qualified to work in accounting or auditing field?
Yes, we do have the internship program. In fact, we are now hiring for internship. In people who want to do internship with us. If you say you're interested, then you can actually link up with our HR department. Before we hire you to our internship program, there will be an assessment. Yeah, it's a kind of a real life so-called interview session, right? You'll be interviewed by our managers before we hire you as an intern. Yep.
Okay, for the second question, what is the qualification for people who want to join the Deloitte company?
Okay, so there are two types of qualification. If you are local graduates, you can join with the degree from accounting, local graduates, yeah, and a certain level of what do you call it, a limit in terms of the CGPA that we actually look at, right? So those with a very good CGPA will be hired after they successful an interview with us. And for overseas graduate students, we normally look into professional paper. If you look into, if you understand professional papers, it refers to like ACCA, like MICPA, yeah, like CPA. Yeah? So those are professional papers. Yeah, so we hired either fresh graduate from local university or SCCA graduates.
Okay. Okay, for the next question, what do you think about the future accountant career since there was an AI technology that will replace this job later on?
Yep. That's why, if you could notice, earlier on, I have actually shared with you in terms of the technological tools, right? The innovation tools that Deloitte has in place. Because we have invested billions of money globally to, to make sure that we are actually ahead of these particular competitors. You are talking about artificial intelligence, means robots do our work. But if let's say you do a research, you can understand that, accounting work, right, it cannot be 100% replaced by AI. Yeah, it still have, it requires so-called a human's, what do you call it, brain thinking. Yeah, so it cannot be 100%. What do you call it, override by AI.
Okay. So next question, does plant visit is necessary when being an auditor?
It depends. Okay, so what happened in Deloitte? Yes, since the senior actually or the audit junior actually express their professional skepticism, they do plant visit. Another plant visit that we normally did, like a stock take plant visit, and also maybe a physical fixed asset sighting. So it depends. Yeah.
Okay, so for the last question, what inspired you to work as an auditor for almost 20 years?
Oh, okay. It's a good question. Yeah, because being auditor is actually quite challenging, but this is what I love, right? Because I am a person who loves compliance work. Yeah, so that's why I choose to be an auditor. In fact, if let's say you become an auditor, you have to really invest in terms of the time. Yeah, you have to sacrifice because your working time is very, very long. It could be from maybe 8 o'clock in the morning until maybe next day, 4 5 o'clock in the next morning. Yeah, but in terms of the value that you can obtain when we become an auditor, this is actually, very, very much viewable, because when you become an auditor, you go to your client. Your client has various so-called nature of business. They can be in business of manufacturing, they can be in the business of property developer, they can be in the business of logistic arrangement, they can be in the business of providing services. So when we become an auditor, we can, myself for example, I can understand a lot of businesses, and it adds value to me. Yeah, it adds value to me. So the knowledge is actually something that not measurable in terms of value. So if let's say you want to learn, the best step is to join an audit firm, a good audit firm, the correct audit firm, to expand your knowledge and and learn from that.
Okay, thank you. So I will pass to Rika.
Okay, I think there is no question, and I think there is the end of accounting talk today. Thank you very much, Puan Nur Sohana.
Erika, this is June from Deloitte. Can we request to have a group photo on Zoom?
Sure.
Yeah, then appreciate if all the participants can actually on your video, and we will have a group photo together.
Okay. So everyone can open your camera.
Yeah. Since we can't meet face to face, I think now we are using Zoom is more common. Then we can have a group photo in Zoom as well. Okay, is everyone on your Zoom?
Yes.
All right, then can we have we will page by page because there are quite a number of our participants here. So just keep smiling so that we can make sure that your nice photo is on. Okay, let's take the first one. 1, 2, 3. Okay, we will move to the next page. Sorry, we can't confirm you are in which page, so just remember smiling. So, second page, let's smile. 1, 2, 3. Okay, we'll go to the next page again. Smile, 1, 2, 3. Okay. We'll move to the next one. Smile, 1, 2, 3. Okay. All right. We'll go to the next one. 1, 2, 3. Smile. Is it all done? Okay, still have because we have 170 people. Okay, last one. Okay, smile, 1, 2, 3. All right. Okay. Ken, I'll hand over back to Rekha. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much to Puan Nur Sohana, Miss June, and Mr. Afi. Finally, on behalf of the AFPAC Club, I would like to express my appreciation to all the attendees for taking time out of your busy duties to attend this seminar. Thank you, Madam Sohana, for your sharing session with us.
No problem.
I believe everyone in this meeting get benefit from your talk for us to prepare to be an accountant.
Yeah. I hope to see you soon to join us. Yeah.
Okay. Hopefully, Deloitte and KPM Bandar Penawa will work together in the future.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you for listening. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Baik lah. Thank you. Mana? Okay. Cepat nak.